Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interest of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikalela ilezwe letu na bantu balo, umsile ukulungo kwepondo letu. Kosi sikalela i Afrika, kina abantwana bayo, kokelo, inkokeli zayo, yaniki ukolo i Africa. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Order. Before we proceed, I would like to remind members about some of the logistical arrangements. As has been practiced to date, honourable members will participate in the sitting of the House, both from here in the chamber, with the presiding officer and the table staff, and via Microsoft Teams. Our standing rules have accordingly been amended to accommodate such hybrid sittings in the House. The honourable members experiencing challenges in connecting to the sitting are requested to contact the WCPP ICT colleagues who will assist to resolve their connectivity challenges. The quorum requirements for the sitting of the House are provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules. Members present in the chamber and via Microsoft Teams have all the privileges and immunities imparted by law. Members who are considered out of order by the presiding officer will have their microphones muted and called to order. The Sergeant at Arms will record members' attendance. Members, in instances where these directives do not cover a particular eventuality, the standing rules must apply. In instances where the rules cannot be applied, the ruling by the presiding officer is final. Members, all microphones have been muted, and however, for those honourable members participating in the sitting of the House via Microsoft Teams, you are requested to use the raise hand functionality of the system when you desire to raise a point of order, and the presiding officer will recognise you. When an honourable member in the chamber wishes to raise a point of order, such an honourable member may address the presiding officer as expected, but must mute their mics when they have completed speaking. Honourable members are requested to please ensure that their microphones are unmuted when the presiding officer recognises them, and when they are done speaking, to please mute their microphone. Honourable members participating in the sitting of the House via Microsoft Teams are requested not to sign into Microsoft Teams on more than one device, unless the second device is utilised with earphones for language translation services, as all these actions result in a disruption of the sound during the sitting. The media and members of the public have also been granted access to this MS Teams meeting as guests of the WCPP. However, members of the press may not use the chat room or speak or activate their cameras while the sitting is in progress. If an individual member who is a member of this House activates their microphone and video camera, such a member or individual will be exited from the sitting immediately. I request that those here today who are not members of this House to please observe the decorum of the House. For the sitting, language translation services are available in the chamber as usual and on Microsoft Teams via the respective channels. Honourable members participating in the sitting of the House must please access the language translation services via a second device, for example, your cell phone, and if you have earphones available, to please use them for the language translations. Honourable members, I would like to remind you that no interjections are permitted during the hybrid sittings, and to this end, I draw the honourable members' attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. Honourable members, before we proceed with the business of today, I would like to take this opportunity to address a tendency that has developed over the past few sessions that detrimentally affects the decorum and good order in the House. This tendency affects both sides of the House, and I'm not apportioning any blame on any individual member or political party. Rather, this is an attempt from my side to assist members to improve our institution in conducting its mandate and display behavior befitting honourable members. Recently, I've noticed a pattern where nonsensical and irrelevant interjections, running commentary and dialogue between members were the order of the day, to the point where constructive debate became impossible. We all know that we enjoy the privilege of freedom of speech in the House, and that must be cherished and protected. But sometimes this privilege gets abused and becomes a free-for-all, which cannot and will not be tolerated. Not only do our standing rules not allow for that, but such behavior infringe the privileges of other members, which is unfair and not permissible. In my acceptance speech after my election as Speaker, I committed to discharging my duties as Speaker and Chief Presiding Officer of the WCPP in an impartial and fair manner, upholding the dignity and the decorum of the House. I accept that fair and impartial application of the rules to the various parties and individual members is essential, but I expect in return your cooperation. I intend keeping my end of the agreement and trust that I will receive the cooperation from both sides of the House in this regard. We owe it to the people of this province. Thank you very much, honourable members. We now proceed to the business of the day, and the first order is the interpellation as printed on the question paper. I now recognise the Honourable Minister, Minister Wenger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the Honourable Member for bringing this important topic here for debate via interpellation. The Western Cape Government acknowledges the very important role that the informal economy plays in the Western Cape and South Africa. This point is demonstrated in the 2022 Provincial Economic Review and Outlook, which showed that approximately 30% of employment in South Africa came from the informal economy and 19% of employment in the Western Cape, which amounted to 439,000 jobs in the Western Cape in the first quarter of 2022. As shown in the 2022 Pero, there was a declining trend in employment in the sector from quarter 1 of 2017 to quarter 1 in 2022. However, I was very pleased to see that from the latest quarterly labour force survey from Stats SA that employment in the informal sector increased in the Western Cape by 22.2% from quarter 4 of 2021 to quarter 4 in 2022. This was significantly higher than the rest of the country, where it grew by 11.6% over the same period. It should, however, be noted that as informal businesses are registered and formalised, employment from these businesses are no longer classified as informal employment, but rather formal employment. In the Western Cape Government, we know that government does not create jobs, it's the private sector that does. And the role of government is to enable the private sector. Our new Growth for Jobs strategy, which is nearing finalisation, makes clear that the private sector includes informal businesses, as well as businesses in rural and township areas with a very specific spatial lens. At its core is the understanding that we as government need to play a role in getting the fundamentals of growth right, such as energy, water and infrastructure. And this must include enabling the success of informal businesses as with formal businesses in the private sector. Furthermore, initiatives such as assisting informal businesses to register and giving them exposure to funding opportunities are important for economic growth and job creation. As such, the Western Cape Government actively partners and collaborates with the private sector, civil society and other levels of government to assist in this process, as well as through our own projects and collaborations. In this respect, I'm advised that the inability to access various kinds of support being offered to small businesses has placed a severe financial strain on some unregistered businesses. Oh, I seem to have lost the page, excuse me. As part of making it easier to do business as an ECD, the Red Tape Reduction Unit, housed within the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, funded 48 ECD businesses to meet compliance requirements such as infrastructure, zoning, and so on, in becoming fully or conditionally registered. The project has had and this was during the COVID-19 pandemic, the project has had a direct and immediate impact on job retention in township communities such as Khayelitsha, Westlake, Retreat, Steenberg, Lotus River, to name a few, and significantly impacts predominantly historically disadvantaged women. The Red Tape Reduction Unit has also assisted municipalities to reduce red tape regarding informal trading permits and does so on a case-by-case basis. All municipalities in the province have informal trading permitting processes, and specific cases can be directed to the Department of Economic Development and Tourism for assistance. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I now see Honourable Klaas.
Baie dankie, achtbare Speaker. En al die mense wat hulle is hier. Ek sê goeiedag vir almal en ook die wat hulle kon luister vir ons. Within the small business sector, one finds both formal and informal business operating in that sphere. However, it is without doubt that the number of informal business, this is the quantity, continue to grow, while the individual business themselves continue to struggle in terms of profit, competition, and substantive growth, or upgrading from informal to formal. This lack of substantive growth or upgrade by those operating in the informal economy means that they will forever be outside.
Honourable Klaas, please take your seat. Honourable Murray, is that a point of order?
Apologies, no, Chair.
Excuse me, Honourable Murray, I can't hear you.
Chair, Speaker, apologies. The hand was incorrectly raised.
Thank you very much. My apologies, Honourable Klaas, that was not a point of order, so you may continue.
Yeah, you waste my time, Chief. The lack of substantive growth and upgrade by those operating in the formal economy means that they will forever be outside in the periphery of the formal economy, of its remaining impossible for their business to have access to loans, overdrafts, and other kinds of financial access facilities provided by financial institutes in their banking sector. As an environment like the one described above, called the active intervenist provincial government, that will extend a helping hand to this business to make sure that they have the requisite tools that they will assist them to operate, compete, and grow. The aim is to run this informal business into formal business, which will tend not just create employment, but formal employment, which will drive poor people out of poverty. This provincial government must give the same amount of attention to the informal economy of this province, the same way they do when it comes to the foreign direct investment. The good part about investing in a local business is that, unlike foreign direct investors, they will never threaten to leave the country when things are going well. The number and the scale of the intervention initiated by the Department of Economic Opportunities in the province must match the number of small informal business operating in the sector. Unlike Pick and Pay, Spaza Shop, modernization program.
Honourable Klaas, your first opportunity has expired. You have a second opportunity, so please take your seat. And I'll see the Honourable Murray.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the Western Cape government has shown strong support for youth, women, differently abled people, as well as Black entrepreneurs through its SMME Booster Fund. These SMMEs are an engine for economic expansion.
Murray, please take your seat. Honourable Syed, is that a point of order? Honourable Syed, can you please stand up? You rose.
No, thank you, Speaker. I withdraw.
Right, please take your seat. Honourable Murray, my apologies, you may continue.
Thank you, Speaker. These SMMEs are an engine for economic expansion and have an important part to play if we are to address the unemployment crisis in this country. This provincial government is making sure our entrepreneurs have all the support they need to become profitable and sustainable drivers of job creation by providing funding for SMMEs to take the next step and grow their businesses. With that said, Speaker, I would like to ask whether the Booster Fund supports informal traders at all, and if so, what are the relevant details?
Thank you very much, Honourable Murray. I now see Honourable Nkondlo.
Enkosi Somlom, to member class, I'm sure if we would have asked this question amongst ourselves, we would have just told him, since the last administration till to date, this DA government has not been interested in informal economy. So that we move the conversation to what matters. We can't keep on asking the same question and be given, the sweetheart answers about the situation of informal traders in this province. What is called programs to support informal traders that the MEC even refers to a payroll year in, year out, but still fails to give specific interventions that are provided to the informal traders. It is the SMME Booster Fund that she would refer to that actually gives more money to intermediaries than the actual entrepreneurs. It is the Pick and Pay market stores that was launched by our Honourable Premier here, who was boasting.
Order, members. There's a member on the floor. Order.
He was boasting about Nozinga stores, and Nozinga was sitting here, her store is closed, and the Premier moves from one intervention to the other. Tourism safety, when there is a threat of big business, money gets to be allocated here for tourism safety here in town, rural safety. Recently, we asked the chairperson of the committee for extortion that is happening to actually threaten township entrepreneurs and businesses, and no conversation takes place here with this particular government on those issues. Leslie Reiters actually recently spoke in Facebook, airing the challenge of informal business owners that have been evicted here in the city of Cape Town off the Belha Mall, which is Airport Mall, from the 28th of February. These are informal traders that actually have been operating in this mall for the past 10 years. They get to be evicted without any option.
Honourable Nkondlo, please wrap up.
We await the informal traders or informal economy strategy that the MEC has been promising in this house.
Thank you, Honourable Nkondlo. Honourable Klaas, your second opportunity. I'm the Speaker, not Chief.
Oh, Speaker, I'm a politician. With the number of shopping malls continue to grow in our township and housing same of the big corporation in the country, it's without a doubt that a healthy competition with the required in market, as it will benefit consumers both in short and long term. However, the reality on the ground is that majority of small informal business struggle to compete against these conglomerates, as the competitive mostly boil down the marketing power, price, and quality, as well as quantity. In an environment such as this one, if this small informal business struggle to access the correct market for purpose of stock, then they can get knocked completely out of business by these conglomerates, and therefore creating competition vacuum in a market which will hit hard on township working class and the poor, as well affecting informal job opportunities in the formal business sector. Having said that, I would like to know whether the department has taken an initiative to ascertain the scale and the type of business operating in the formal sector, with the aim of linking them with those that can assist them to register and grow these businesses. One way this could be done is This could be done is by inviting various business to do roadshow and awareness informative section with people from different township and rural areas in the province.
Still have a minute.
Yeah, if I've got a minute, let me just continue with this one.
You still have
In line with
a
the-
minute. You
yeah.
may continue.
In line with the original question, are they a program initiated by department in order to assist those informal liquor business as well as unlicensed, unregulated township loan shacks, instead of calling this business illegal in all sorts of names, that this department, we want them to facilitate and be looked after. We don't want you to call this small business that are growing, even the liquor business, and then illegal. We must make a way to make them legal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Klaas. I now see the Honourable Minister. Honourable Marais, is that a point of order? Oh. All right, Honourable Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to take this opportunity to announce that DDAT has formally entered into a memorandum of understanding with the National Department of Small Business Development. Areas of collaboration under this MOU include the promotion and encouragement of the take-up by qualifying small businesses in the province of support and incentives offered by the National Department and other relevant national departments. For example, the Department of Tourism and agencies such as CEDA and CIFA, as well as red tape reduction, especially where the blockages and inefficiencies emanate from national legislation, policies, and business-facing services. These efforts will also contribute to making it easier for businesses to register and to get exposure to business funding opportunities. I'd also like to share some of the initiatives of the department, and I'm advised that since 2019, the SMME Booster Fund, and Honourable Nkondlo will be pleased to know, has included a category to support municipal infrastructure development, such as informal and township trading spaces. To date, the following municipalities have been supported to create markets to the benefit of the township sector. In Hesekwa, the Kwanakotula Business Hub allows for the municipality to expand on a small-scale project to construct 4 business units in the hub to support more light industrial-type businesses. In Oudtshoorn, the business hub and trading area will house 5 traders in containerized units in Bongoletu. In Langeberg, the Bonnievale informal trading site and Montague informal trading site will serve 22 existing and new informal traders. In Mossel Bay, the Maikale business hub and Wolverdance market site includes the establishment of 17 refurbished containers, which will house 23 local businesses.
Order members.
SMME trading zones in the townships of Smithsville in Barrydale LED units and support 6 businesses. In Lanesburg, the new business park is a trading facility that consists of 4 units to accommodate businesses in the retail sector.
Order.
In Cape Agulhas, the O'Meal Street trading area, Lesedi Square, has 6 trading containers and hosts 6 businesses.
Order, members.
8 people. In Witzenberg, the Skoonvlei...
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. My apologies. Members, I'm struggling to hear the Minister. So I've asked the administration to check the microphones, but can I please ask that you allow the Minister to conclude her or give a response? And please don't this running commentary, Premier, and on my left-hand side, if you can please allow the Minister to, that she was on the floor. Minister, over to you.
Skoonvlei SMME Business Hub in series provides industrial and business space for traders through 10 customized containers. In Mossel Bay, the Kwakonaba Youth and Business Park has 19 trader units that actively trade. And again, in Mossel Bay and Dalmeida, Trader Hub ensures that 15 local businesses and 3 day traders have attractive and affordable spaces to do business. I'm further advised, and Honourable Klaas will be pleased to know, that the Construction Information Session Expo is a collaboration between the Department of Transport and Public Works and DDAT, and the project is aimed at emerging contractors, both formal and informal, to develop their capacity to access construction procurement opportunities offered by the provincial government. The department presents access to market opportunities, noting tender opportunities with various spheres of government, 2, access to finance linked to development finance institutions and other funding sources, And 3, some of the common challenges that businesses experience that hinder their growth. The program is rolled out in townships and rural areas across the province where future business opportunities are being planned by the Department of Transport and Public Works. In 2022, the program was rolled out in Grabouw, Ashton, Mossel Bay, Eersterivier, Kales River, Hermanus, and Atlantis. And these sessions were attended by both formal and informal businesses. So to conclude, Mr. Speaker, the department has assisted small businesses in the informal sector from townships and rural areas alike. Our vision of the economy is one that is inclusive, sustainable, resilient, diverse, and thriving, generating confidence, hope, and prosperity for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that is the end of interpellation. We will now move over to questions as per Rule 202, as printed on the question paper. I wish to advise honourable members that once the Honourable Premier or a Minister has started the reply to the oral question as printed on the question paper, honourable members must use the chat facility for the sitting of the House to indicate that they want to ask a follow-up question. And there are 4 opportunities for follow-up questions, but the honourable member who has posed the initial oral question as printed on the question paper will have the first opportunity for a follow-up. After that, other honourable members may use the remaining opportunity to ask a follow-up question. I now recognise the Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you very much to the Honourable Class for the question. So the reply as 1. The Provincial Department of Social Development has requested the use of the Tafelberg Creche and Constitution Street in Zonnebloem. This is IRF 116944 in Cape Town for the purposes of establishing a new homeless shelter in the CBD. This project has been allocated 18 million rand for this coming financial year, and the shelter is due to be operational before the end of the 2023-24 financial year. The strategic brief has been completed, and it is envisaged that the project will go to tender in July this year. Between the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape Government, significant efforts are being made to create more spaces for homeless persons. The City currently funds 1,150 bed spaces for homeless adults and is planning to add a further 330 at its spaces in 2023, making a total of 1,480. The Western Cape Department of Social Development funds 2,398 bed spaces across the province, and with the additional 120 planned for the new site, we'll be funding over 2,500 spaces by the end of the new financial year. The same department, DSD, also funds social workers at all the shelters that we work with in order to help homeless adults reintegrate with their families and or communities. And then the formal Tafelberg site, creche building has been requested as an alternative replacement to the Robbie New Rock site. The latter, and of course they're quite close to each other, the latter was found to be unsuitable. When the contractors went in, there is extensive asbestos in the building, and so that's why the second building has now been put into the process for rebuilding, and we're having to reassess. We've got to remove that asbestos first before it can get any other building or project aligned to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Honourable Class.
Thank you. Since there is an increasing number of homeless people in the province, and you have already undertaken to assist them, under your leadership, is your government going to continue in this trajectory to identify some vacancies government buildings and turn them into shelters at faster rate? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Class. Honourable Premier.
Thank you for the follow-up question. Obviously this is a role that we play as a government and also at municipal level. And it's not only just the identification of the shelters, it's also the process. And we all know that COVID-19 exacerbated quite terribly the number of job losses, the number of people who were forced out of wherever they were living and ended up on our streets all without shelter. And of course, it's not only the provision of shelter, but it's the processes that we've got to do to find alternatives. And, it's from dignified shelter. Those shelters have got to make sure that they've got comfort and ablutions, at least 2 meals a day, access to social workers on site, which I've mentioned, personal development plans. But it's interesting at the moment, and if I think about what's happening in the city, how I think now almost all homeless in the city have been interviewed 3 times. And it's part of a process to understand what is the issue, how come you ended up here, can we help in a way to get you rehabilitated? In some cases, you find out that they've perhaps come to look for work, they want to go home, and so then how do we get people to wherever they want to get home to? Or perhaps it's a mental well-being issue, how do we help that person from that point of view? Is it reunification with the family? And social workers play quite a prominent role in the reunification processes. And then, of course, as you also then say, what about other plans? And so there are plans. We've got to make sure it's not only just in the city, because your question was about Robbie New Rock, but what about in the other towns as well? And between DSD and the province, making sure that we're getting that right, that there is the safety net of housing, of those social spaces. But at the same time, it's also understanding that's in balance with the other services that get offered to people. I mean, I think about SASSA and the role that SASSA plays. And also, I mean, sometimes the failure that SASSA is where it's failing our citizens, because this is the basic of basic needs. And when you can't even get service, at the moment in our province, we've got 1.6 million people who are receiving SASSA grants. Of course, it's a way smaller number who are not able to find shelter. In other words, homeless is which we're speaking about here. But it's another layer. And when that system fails, it just exacerbates the problem and makes it even worse. Or, as I mentioned, the interviews to find out exactly what were the causalities. Was it a job loss? Is it a family issue? Is it a mental well-being issue? What are the issues so we can help citizens? So often it's just the ability to get an ID book so that you can actually register yourself, so that you can get your grant, so that you can actually find a job. So these are the kind of services that are also letting down so often our citizens, is when a SASSA office or Home Affairs office doesn't work. And we've really got to make sure that it is a multi-pronged approach that we get to help these citizens who are actually in dire straits. And that's where social nets are so critical in making sure that we can help these individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. I've got I see Honourable Baku Force and then Honourable Marais after that.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. I would like to pose a follow-up question to our Premier, Honourable Windy. During the 22 State of the Province address, the Premier promised that the vacant Robbie Neuro Clinic will be turned into a homeless shelter as part of the initiative to help homeless people. Were there any other buildings or spaces that the provincial government has earmarked as shelters for homeless people? If so, what are the relevant details? And the second one, will the Robbie Neuro Clinic be turned into a homeless shelter as you promised us? I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Baku Force. That is the oral question as printed on the order paper, and I think in the Premier's first reply, he answered Honourable Klaas's question directly, because that is directly the question as printed on the order paper. So, Premier, I don't know if you want to add to your initial reply. Alternatively, I will move on to Honourable Marais. Okay, can you just for the record?
The question that the Honourable Klaas asked, and I did answer it. I'll say it again. Thank you, Honourable Member, but that is, you read off exactly the question that the Honourable Klaas did ask me, and I think I have answered it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, and I'll see Honourable Marais.
Thank you, Speaker. Premier, the term homeless people, do you equate that with people on the housing waiting list also? And if not, why not? Because who has a bigger claim to being helped? Those who waited patiently for 10, 20 years for a house, staying in a shack in the backyard of somebody, or those who just rush into town and live under a bridge and is never on a waiting list. Do you differentiate between the two, and why? And who should get preference? Law-abiding citizens who waited 20 years on a housing waiting list, living in a caravan or a shack, or those who come, don't go to the housing office applying for a house, but just sit here under a bridge or wherever they can find a place? Are they, in terms of your policy, going to receive preferential treatment? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Murray. Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much to the Honourable Murray, and I think it's a really good question, that, because I think many people are confused, but obviously the waiting list is a separate issue to a homeless person, and it's two different departments that actually intervene here. So if someone is on the housing list, living in a shack or in a backyard, they are on a human settlements waiting list, and the human settlements department will deal with that through the municipality. This is a separate issue, but I do want to say that there is times when it overlaps. So I spoke about the city at the moment in the process that they're doing interviews with each and every person that are homeless. It's to find out what the issues are, why and how it happened to you in your circumstances. How did you end up here? But one of the questions are also, have you got an ID? If you've got an ID, what is your ID number? Where do you live? Where have you come from? Are you on a waiting list? So that question is also asked. Have you been on a waiting list? It was very interesting looking at some of the answers to these questions. And I mean, some of the individuals actually come from places as close as Delft and actually go home in a weekend and come back during the week. And so I don't know the exact, because when I was looking at it, I was thinking, I wonder what the cause of this is. Is this because public transport is becoming inaccessible and more expensive? And we know that already that because of the failure of the rail system, 650,000 people should be traveling on the Central Line. But of course, the Central Line, we know, does not operate anymore. There are 13,000 people who live in informal dwellings on the railway reserve, and so that train line cannot operate. And so I don't know, I mean, we'll have to go deeper into some of those answers, but it was one of the questions that I was asking when I saw that people were actually coming into the city, living on a pavement during the week. Is that because it's more commercially viable? Do you have a job in the city? We need to go even deeper into those questions. But it is also because there is this absolute failure of our train system, which should be the lowest cost, efficient, on time. But of course, it's a total failure. It is another one of those total failures of central government on their ability to provide those kind of services. They can't keep the lights on, they can't keep the trains going, they can't keep the SASSA offices open and get the grants going on time, they can't get ID documents to people who need them. So that central space within our country, which is totally failing our citizens, and is another exacerbation towards how people themselves find themselves in these dire straits. But your question is, they are two separate departments, but they are interleading questions that have to be asked, because you cannot be advantaged because you suddenly find yourself as homeless, but it is a different support that the state gives you through the social development department, and the same in the city or municipality and the province. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. The last opportunity is Honourable Baku Force.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Premier, with regards to the recent court judgment granting to the city permission to evict the homeless people and anticipation for a high volume of homeless people who will be in need of shelter or other forms of assistance. What intervention measures has his government put in place, and how many other shelters are earmarked to assist? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before you go, Honourable Premier, there was more than one follow-up question. So, Premier, I'm going to hand over to you to answer as you seem fit.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the honourable member. Obviously asking a question about a different sphere of government, but I will endeavour to answer that question comprehensively. And the first part of the question is, so what are you doing about this? Because
Order, members.
The honourable member is obviously referring to a process that's on the go right at the moment. I presume it's the process that you're referring to right now, that the application has gone to the courts, where in April they are asking for an eviction process. But also at the same time showing exactly what is being put in place before that can happen. And
Order, members. Honourable Kama.
if the honourable member Kama will just listen, I will reiterate on those things that are being done. So, of course,
Order, members.
interactions with individuals who find themselves on the street, and creating that net, that social net. So I will reiterate again. So the city currently funds 1,150 bed spaces for homeless adults and is planning to add a further 330 at its safe spaces in 2023, making a total of 1,480. The Western Cape Department of Social Development funds 2,398 bed spaces across the province, with an additional 120 planned for the new site, and this is the new site as referred to in this question by the Honourable Class. And I thank him for that question, which takes our placements up to 2,500. And of course, that's what you need to do, is you need to be creating these safe spaces, because you want to get someone off a street to a safe space that has a meal, or in actual fact, in this case, 2 meals, that has the social services supplied to them, that has dignified shelter, that has comfortable ablution facilities. And so it is about dignity. It's about showing that you care as a government, that you're creating these spaces. That is what it's about. And so to the honourable member, again, that is why the further 18 million is being funded. And it's not only the 18 million that's funded for the actual structure itself, but it is about the support that goes into it, with the social services, with the funding for the meals, with the operations. That is extra funding that goes in our department. And of course, I'm sure that you will interact in the budget process that is coming up very shortly, because we're moving into a new financial year in a couple of weeks. And once again, a government that will table its budget next week, debate that budget, approve that budget before we start the new financial year. The only government in South Africa that actually does it. Other governments in our country start spending their money even before their legislatures approve. We will do it beforehand. And in that process, I think that is also a further time, not only questions to the Premier, but a further time for the Standing Committee to actually go into depth and interrogate where the money is being spent, how that social net is being put in place, so that we are showing that we are safeguarding and caring for those citizens that are the most in need. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. Honourable members, that concludes question 1. Honourable Chief Whip, is that a point of order?
No, Honourable Speaker, just for the House to note that question 3 under new questions will stand over, and concurrence has been reached between the Minister and the member. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Honourable members, Honourable Maran, honourable members. Honourable members, I just want to alert you that the clock is ticking for question time, so I'm going to allow you to continue your conversation, and when you're ready, we will continue with questions. Honourable members, Honourable members, are
Speaker,
you...
This is unacceptable.
Honourable
You've
members.
got to apply the rules here. This is unacceptable. I'm not prepared to sit and listen to this chabber here. This
Honourable members.
unruly.
Honourable members. Okay, honourable members, please settle down. Settle down, members, and I will now allow the Minister of Education his freedom to address the House. Honourable Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Member for the question. Wesley Newman was found guilty by an independent presiding officer of acting in a manner that was inconsistent with his duties and obligations as a principal and manager in the education system. He was found guilty on the charges of failure to carry out a lawful order, disrespect in the form of abusive or insolent behavior, bringing the department into disrepute, misusing his position by inciting personnel and or learners and or the community on social media platforms not to attend school or to report for duty, and breaching his employer's social media policies. He has decided, nevertheless, to take the matter further legally. So as of the 31st of January 2023, the total expenditure is as follows. 1.5 million rand for the disciplinary hearing, which includes the cost of the independent presiding officer and legal representation for the department. 357,000 rand in legal costs related to the appeal, and 651,000 rand in legal costs related to the arbitration currently underway before the Education Labour Relations Council. Now, it is...
Order, members.
Now, it is... Did the Honourable Member say 5 million?
Honourable Minister, can you please speak to the Chair?
Thank you.
Order, members. Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable members, you will have an opportunity, if you wish to pose a question to the Minister, you can indicate that you would like to do so. But this interjection and continuous commentary must please stop. Honourable Minister, is that a point of order?
It is, Speaker. There are some blasphemous remarks coming from the opposite benches, which are quite offensive and I don't think are parliamentary.
All right,
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Please.
Honourable Minister, I will revert back to the House after I had an opportunity. Honourable members, I'm on the floor. Honourable Maran, I'm addressing the House. Honourable Minister, I will revert back to the House after I had an opportunity to consult hands-on. Honourable Kama, is that a point of order?
No, thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I want to address you on the interjections. I don't think there was running commentary from our side, but the Minister was easily distracted. The Premier was doing that when our members were speaking, but they were not distracted. So when we just heckled, there was no running commentary. So it's him who wanted to answer because there was something valuable that was being said here. So we can't be blamed and be told that it's distraction. And the rules must apply equally. It's this behavior that makes us to believe that we must be on a defensive mode because we're being targeted from the Speaker's seat. So I think, can you please be fair and apply the rules equally as we continue to heckle where necessary? Thank you.
All right. If you firstly, that is not a point of order, but secondly, I completely understand your concern. The reality is the minister's on the floor, and if you want to have a question or pose a question to the minister, please indicate so, and I will allow you an opportunity to officially pose that question to the minister. But please do not ask the minister questions in his response. There's a difference between heckling and running commentary, and interjections because as per Rule 40, it's not allowed. So, Honourable Minister, over to you, and can I please ask that you speak to the chair and not directly to the members?
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I will do exactly that. I was really just diverting from my prepared reply, just simply to compliment the opposition, who seem to be much better at addition than percentages, which they struggled with a little bit during the Premier's debate earlier. Speaker, I think on this question it is very important to note that the costs related to the appeal, which, as I mentioned earlier, the costs related to the appeal are 357,000 Rand in legal costs and 651,000 in legal costs in relation to the arbitration which is currently underway before the Education Labour Relations Council. That those costs have been incurred, and this is an important point, as a result of Mr. Newman deciding to appeal the external presiding officer's decision to dismiss him. And of course, despite being found guilty on these very serious charges, which I outlined earlier and which included the failure to carry out a lawful order, disrespect in the form of abusive or insolent behavior, bringing the department into disrepute, misusing his position by inciting personnel and or learners and or the community on social media platforms not to attend school or to report for duty, and of course breaching his employer's media policies. Despite being found guilty on these very serious charges, the Provincial Minister of Education at the time, my predecessor, in response to the appeal, gave Mr. Newman a lifeline. Instead of dismissal, he could have taken the offer of a head of department post as an alternative to dismissal. But Mr. Newman declined this offer and decided to take the matter further legally to the ELRC, which of course he is entitled to do, and which we are now obliged to defend. Therefore, the costs of the ELRC arbitration are a direct result of Mr. Newman declining the offer made to him and his decision to take the matter further legally. So had Mr. Newman decided to take the lifeline that was offered to him, he would have saved the department. He would have saved the department and indeed the public about 650,000 Rand. Speaker, I would like to just remind the honourable member, who I can see is eager to ask a follow-up, and the House, that this matter is currently part of an active, ongoing arbitration hearing before the Education Labour Relations Council.
Order, members.
Which is set to...
Order, members. Members, can I please ask that you, and I mean, I've been doing this in the last few sittings. I don't want us to get to a point where we start naming, but I need you to please work with me. The Minister is responding. There will be an opportunity for questions, follow-up questions. Please use that opportunity to pose your questions to the Minister. Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. As I was trying to say, I would like to remind the member and this House that this matter is currently part of an active, ongoing arbitration hearing before the Education Labour Relations Council, which is set to resume, I believe, in about mid-April. And so while I would like to provide comprehensive replies, and indeed I will intend to do so, I may be constrained in the replies that I can provide to the House. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I've got Honourable Syed will be the first opportunity. The second opportunity, Honourable Kasim. Then Honourable Fry, and the last one, Honourable Bartman. In that order.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Let me firstly greet the the members of the Wesley Newman Action Committee who are present. Colleen Titus, I've seen her around there, present, and for standing with Mr. Newman through this just struggle. Let me express my disappointment in the Honourable MEC's response. The MEC actually did not respond to the crux of the question. He's going around in circles. And what he does, which is very, very unfortunate, is to deny Mr. Newman, like any employee in the state, has the right, he's got the right to appeal. And if Mr. Newman was wrong, why are favour
Honourable Side, Honourable Side, please take your seat.
Okay, I'm getting to it.
Honourable Side, please take your seat. There's a point of order. Or, Honourable Minister, is that a point of order?
It is, Mr. Speaker. Is this a member's statement or oral questions time? I didn't hear any questions.
Honourable Minister, thank you very much. I'm listening carefully, and Honourable Side has indicated that he's getting to his question. Honourable Side, can you please address me? Members, there's a member on the floor.
Unfortunately, Speaker, I watched the Honourable Mania for many years in the National Assembly, and this is how he used to pose
Honourable Side, can you get to your point? Can you get to your question?
So, in a written reply to my question on in September 2022, despite omitting important expenditure items such as cost of employing the principals who took the Newman persecution bill to 2.6 million. The department has incurred, and we are getting that info now through this answer, has incurred further costs due to the ongoing arbitration, which has been, in a sense, deliberately delayed. I therefore want to understand from the MEC, what is the total, the overall cost, everything, not only the cost in court, but the cost that the department has spent, even when it has come to having to implement certain changes at the school, because that is a cost to the entire case. What is that overall cost as a result of the overall persecution of Wesley Newman? The result of having senior counsel as well. That is what I want to know. And then add to this.
Thank you, Honourable Side. That was a question. Honourable Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's good to know that at least in the form of the Honourable Khalid Sayed, I have at least one fan in my, and who has watched me carefully in the National Assembly. He's a very rare bird. There are not many.
Honourable Minister, speak to me and not to the Honourable Side.
Thank you. Honourable Speaker, I'm a little bit perplexed by the Honourable Member's follow-up question. He says that I've not responded to the crux of his question. Now, the crux of his question is how much was spent on the Wesley Newman matter. Now, I set that out in great detail in my reply, and I will repeat this. 1.5 million rand for the disciplinary hearing, which includes the cost of independent presiding officer and, of course, the legal representation for the department. 357,000 rand in legal costs related to the appeal, and 651,000 in legal costs related to the arbitration currently underway before the Education Labour Relations Council. Now, what I did not provide there, of course, was a total. One honourable member took a stab and said 2.5 million. Given the challenges the opposition experiences with arithmetic, it wasn't a bad guess. The total cost is 2012,171.2. And that, Honourable Speaker, I would argue, replies to the crux of the question in very great detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I now see Honourable Kasim. Honourable members, Honourable Kasim is online.
Thank you, Speaker. According to the media, or media reports rather, and affidavits that were handed into the police 2 years ago, there were evidence of bribery where a senior official of the department allegedly bribed and intimidated a teacher with a position if he cooperated with the department by falsely testifying in a disciplinary hearing against Mr. Newman. This was about 2 years ago. The police confirmed the case, said no arrests were made and no charges have been made as the investigations were continuous. What is the outcome of this investigation and what has been done on the department's side with the amount of evidence and affidavits that were handed in from different individuals? Secondly, how can the presiding officer be independent?
Honorable Kasim, you are entitled to ask one follow-up question. You're now going into your second follow-up. So I'm going to ask that the Honourable Minister respond to your first question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Kasim for her question and indeed to welcome her as a new member to this House. Now, I am not aware and I do not have the particulars of the matter to which she refers, and I would invite the member to put a detailed written parliamentary question and I will provide her with a comprehensive response on this matter in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I see Honourable Fry.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. To the Premier, sorry, to the Minister. Apologies. Sorry about that. What support is currently underway for the class of 2023 in this?
Order, members. There's a member on the floor. Order, members.
What support is currently underway for the matric class of 2023 at Heathfield High? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. That in fact is a new question, but I'm going to allow the Minister to decide if he wants to answer that or not. Minister,
thank you, Honourable Speaker.
If you are able
it does relate to the matter at hand, and I would like to take a stab at replying to the question. Generally, the situation at the school, I think, is stable and productive. Learners are attending class, and vacant posts are being filled. And I think there really is much to celebrate at the school. And I really want to see the school succeed. And I really do commend the efforts of the acting principal together with the SMT on the progress that they are making. And of course, the school is focused very much, as the Honourable Member suggests, on the class of 2023. The school, under the leadership of the acting principal and SMT, have put in a very comprehensive program to support the matric class of 2023. There are a number of measures which are being put in place. First, after-school classes will be held which cover all subjects, as well as classes on Saturday. The school is embarking on a mentorship program where a group of 5 or 6 learners will be assigned to a teacher who will meet with them to support and advise them and to monitor their progress throughout the year. The school also is setting up a resource center for those learners who do not necessarily have a suitable space to study at home. And this will, of course...
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Side, is that a point of order?
Yeah, on a point of order, Chair, when the member of the EFF was posing the question, it was said, no, it was not relevant. But now, the MEC is responding and speaking something completely different to the original question, just on the issue of relevance.
All right. Thank you, Honourable Syed. Honourable members, there was a question posed. How the Minister responds or answers is not for me to adjudicate. So I'm going to allow the Minister to continue. Minister, please note that there was a question posed.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Honourable Member claims that the question put by the the honourable member was somehow, by the Honourable Kasim, was somehow dismissed. It was not. The honourable member put a question about an event that occurred, as I understood it, 2 years ago, and I'm simply not familiar with the facts, but I have offered the member an opportunity to put a written question so that I can establish the details through the department and provide her with a comprehensive reply. The Honourable Christopher Fry does ask a pertinent question, and the question that he asks is, what support is being put in place to support the matric class of 2023? Which broadly is about how the school is putting new programs in place to support teaching and learning, and how the school is stabilizing and making progress. So as I was saying, the school is setting up a resource center for the learners who do not necessarily have a suitable space to study at home.
Order, members.
And this will have all the necessary textbooks and subject information for the year available. Matric learners will, of course, as is usual, have access to winter and spring school support in the district, and district officials stand by to support the school. And I think that the measures that have been put in place, Honourable Member, are a huge credit to the acting principal and the SMT at Heathfield High School. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Order, members. The last opportunity is Honourable Bartman, who is also online. Honourable Bartman. Order, members.
Thank you, Speaker, and good afternoon to everyone. Speaker, I wanted to find out, given the response the Minister has now indicated regarding what is happening at the school in terms of the program, I wanted to find out, I read in the Cape Times on approximately, I think it was the 6th of February, a letter from some concerned learner groups who made allegations regarding timetables and schedules at the school. And I wanted to know whether the Minister has responded to the detailed allegations that was contained in this letter that was submitted by the respective learner group. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Bartman. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Before I sort of reply, I heard an Honourable Member say that the Honourable Chris Fry did actually, in fact, put a question that was unrelated to Heathfield High School.
Honourable Minister, can I please ask that you address me?
Honourable Speaker, I do apologise. Let me address you. The Honourable Member said that the Honourable Chris Fry asked a question unrelated to Heathfield High School. In fact, the opposite is true. The Honourable Chris Fry asked a question about how the class of 2023 was being supported at Heathfield High School. And the reply which I provided gives a comprehensive outline of the program being implemented by the school to support the class of 2023 at Heathfield High School. Thank you.
Honourable members, honourable members, honourable members. Honourable Maseko, is that a point of order?
Who is speaking except to call attention to point of order or a question of privilege?
All right. Thank you very much, Honourable Maseko. Yes, indeed, members. Can I please ask that if you want to raise a point of order that you do so, but please do not interrupt the Minister while he is answering the question. The question was posed. How the Minister chooses to respond is not for me to adjudicate. If you don't like the answer, that's unfortunately there's nothing that the presiding officer can do to that. If you want to use the parliamentary mechanisms to pose the question, then please do so. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's hard not to notice that the Leader of the Opposition has just received a rather big brown envelope.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, that is against parliamentary rules. There's an emblem. You cannot display. Honourable members, you are not allowed to display any political party or political regalia in this house. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, can I please ask, as the Leader of the Opposition, to please assist me so that we can maintain the decorum in this house. You are a seasoned politician and you know that that is not allowed. Honourable Dugmo, is that a point of order?
Speaker, thank you. If I could just address you on this. I received a big brown envelope. I didn't know what was in it. It's quite big, so if you mind, I will just leave the house, fold it up so that no emblem is showing, and then I'll bring it back.
Can you please leave the... Members, actually, the fact that we are laughing about that is an indication of how seriously we are actually taking our jobs as members that represent the citizens of this province. I do not actually think that this is funny. I think it's about time that the rules of this house needs to be adhered to. Honourable Kama, I'm addressing the house. Can you please take your seat? I mean, we have citizens watching this, and we think it's funny to just to affect the decorum of this house. So the rest of the sitting, can I please ask that you assist me so that we can maintain the decorum of the house, and in particular the leaders of political parties. Honourable Minister, you may continue. Honourable Kasim, is there a point of order?
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to make a point of order. The Minister is misleading the House by lying and saying he does not know about the bribery case when the Minister responded in a media article with regards to that bribery case. I was the investigative journalist in the article and you responded to me. So can I get an update on that bribery case, please?
All right. Thank you, Honourable Kasim. What's your point of order?
The Minister is misleading the House. He's lying when he says he doesn't know about the case.
Honourable Kasim, it's unparliamentary to say that a honourable member of the House is lying. I will take that first part of your point of order by saying that the Minister is misleading the House, the content of which I can't adjudicate. So we will revert to Hansard and come back to the House. Honourable Minister, was that a point of order? Thank you. Honourable Kama, is that a point of order?
No, thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I would like you to redirect the Minister, because really the reason why we even went to have that disruption is because he was speaking to everything that is happening here than the question itself. So I think you need to redirect him to focus on the business of the House and what is on the agenda, so that this House does not really, if it does not have an answer, you can just say it does not have it and sit down. Thank you.
All right, Member Kama, that's not a point of order, but I want to address all members. We are all honourable members in this House. Can I please ask that you respect each other, that we respect one another? We are all honourable members, so when you address a member, that you please address the member as an honourable member and not a he and a she. So, Honourable Minister, you were on the floor, so I'm going to allow you an opportunity to continue with that last question that was posed by Honourable Baartman.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Baartman for putting the question. Yes, I am aware of a letter drafted by a group referring to themselves as a concerned learner group, and they raised, of course, several concerns about the state of Heathfield High School. I, of course, immediately investigated these claims, and I after a discussion with the department and indeed the principal, we, of course, very strongly deny the allegations that were made in the newspaper to which she refers. The claim that there was no school timetable, we believe is false. Full-time teaching and learning had been underway at the school, and of course, the senior management team, again, to the credit of the new acting principal, was brought back earlier for the first time to complete proper planning and ensure that the school year got off to a smooth start. A matric afternoon program was already underway, and additional lessons were being provided to matric learners after school at that time for 4 days a week. The claims that most grades don't have teachers was patently false, and the claim about the assembly hall was also indeed false. Parent meetings across all grades were in fact being held that week in keeping with the school's commitment to keep parents informed. And we are concerned, and of course we urged the group responsible to be careful about the impact of these kinds of false claims, because of course they always risk instigating discontent or disruption at the school, which of course is unacceptable and undermines the acting principal and SMT's huge effort to get teaching and learning to resume at Heathfield High School. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. That concludes question 1 that was standing over from the 2nd of March. We will now, I see the Minister of Education, Minister Mania, for question 3.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Member for putting the question, which of course relates to the recent blockade by the taxi industry here in the city of Cape Town. So my response is yes, we did in fact take a number of steps to end the blockade. Honourable Speaker, prior to the 13th of March 2023, schools in and around Khayelitsha began reporting to our district office that some of their learners were absent as a result of the harassment and intimidation of our contracted learner support scheme drivers by minibus taxi associations. Academia Primary School, which I visited, for example, informed us that over 50% of their learners had been absent over the past week. And one of our special needs schools informed us that their learner transport, which was taking some of our most vulnerable learners to school, had in fact been turned back. On Friday, the 10th of March 2023, 2,400 learners in the area were absent from school. On the weekend of the 11th and 12th of March 2023, a threatening voice note began to circulate on WhatsApp and caused alarm in our schools and amongst parents. The translated transcript reads as follows. On Monday, the people who have children that use public transport to school, such as combis, Avenza, vans, etc., on Monday, we want to let you know that children will be taken out of these modes of transport as they have started with buses. Children who will not be taken out of these transports are people using staff transport with Codeta stickers. Children using transport with Codeta stickers will not be taken out of these cars. Whether going to school or creche, they will be taken out of these transport. If they are using a transport with Codeta stickers, they will not be taken out of the transport on Monday. If you have a child going to school on Monday, arrange for them. If there are many hire minibus taxi with Codeta stickers to transport them on Monday, this is what's going to happen on Monday. I'm just letting you know. People who are going to have children taken out of their transport are those using private cars. This is what's going to happen on Monday. This threatening message was distributed to parents all over Khayelitsha. On Monday, the 13th of March 2023, these threats then materialized. All non-cadet vehicles transporting children to school, including parents driving their own children to school in their own cars, were stopped from doing so. Videos and photos began to surface on social media showing learners being forced off buses and children hiding in the footwell of cars to try to evade the thugs seeking to stop them from going to school. In this climate of fear, harassment and intimidation and uncertainty, over 5,100 learners, Honourable Speaker, over 5,100 learners did not attend school. And when I visited Academia Primary School that morning, the principal informed me that their absenteeism rate was now at about 90%. Parents were outraged by cadets' actions. I'm sure that some of the members watched the carte blanche excerpt this past Sunday and heard Zibonele FM's representative stating that 98% of the calls they received were totally against Codeta's actions. Parents started to organize on social media with a plan to protest the taxi ranks and prevent them from operating. Codeta then had to change tactic by publicly announcing that they would stop harassing learner transport with the exception of our contractor learner transport service buses. Their official letter stated, and put it very simply, we would like all the people who transport our children to school to start doing so tomorrow morning. This is in exception of the buses, and in this case, Codeta will provide transport to these learners free of charge from the 16th of February 2023 to 23 February 2023. And Honourable Speaker, in effect, what Codeta had announced was that they would be illegally hijacking our learner transport scheme. The letter was signed by the General Secretary and indeed the Chairman of Codeta. It was completely brazen, Honourable Member. Our department would simply and not tolerate this lawlessness, and accordingly we took several actions. We met with the provincial leadership of the South African Police Service and agreed to a plan of action that included SAP's operations to end the criminality. I laid a criminal complaint of common assault, intimidation and extortion with the SAPs against the minibus taxi associations who prevented our children from getting to school. We refused to meet and engage with any minibus taxi association. And finally, of course, we approached the Western Cape High Court for an urgent interdict against Codeta and its members to prevent them, of course, from obstructing, interfering and stopping the transport of learners in the Western Cape. The court granted the interdict and has sent a strong message to the minibus taxi mafia. There is no excuse for violating the constitutional rights of our children or for putting parents in the terrible position of having to choose between their children's education and keeping them safely at home. It would also put an end, of course, to the hollow claims made by Codeta that they were somehow not involved in the criminal actions they announced that they were taking. The court ordered, and I quote, that the respondent and its affiliated members are interdicted and restrained from obstructing, interfering and stopping the transportation of learners within the Western Cape, and that the respondent and its affiliate members are interdicted and restrained from issuing threats to the applicants, service providers, learners and members of the public to the effect that they, of course, which refers to the respondent, will obstruct, interfere and stop the transporting of learners within the Western Cape. The respondents have also, and this is important, been ordered to pay costs, which of course we will pursue, and we will pursue relentlessly. I also, of course, communicated directly Honourable Speaker, with parents of the affected schools through letters distributed via principals to keep them informed of our progress. And so, Speaker, I would like to commend and thank parents of Khayelitsha, who stayed home from work to look after their children, who diligently collected work packs, who travelled on buses to make sure their children were safe, who created lift clubs in the absence of contracted learner transport, and who stood up to the minibus taxi mafia by demanding that their children be able to travel to school without harassment and indeed interference. We now encourage our parents to send their children back to school if they feel comfortable doing so, so that our teachers can determine how much work needs to be caught up and, of course, implement plans to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, there is 40 seconds left, so I'm not going to allow for a follow-up question. That brings us to the end of questions for oral reply. Outstanding replies will be printed on Hansard. Honourable members, we now move on to a question to the Premier without notice as per Rule 204. I kindly ask members or remind members that 2 follow-up questions may be posed by the member that's asking the question relating to the original question or reply. I see Honourable Barnes.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, and to the Premier, I hope that the Premier is aware of the recent murder of a young man by a security company during an eviction of people at Royland and Magnolia Flats in Paarl East. That was ordered by Drakensberg Municipality. It is concerning that evictions are on the rise again in the province, especially given that the City of Cape Town approached the courts for permission to evict the homeless people. I therefore want to ask whether the province has an emergency housing plan to accommodate people in need, especially those who have been evicted, and how are these implemented? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the Honourable Barnes for the question. I'm not fully aware of the detail of the Drakensberg application. And of course, one knows that when an eviction is sought, that from time to time the courts will ask whether there is alternate accommodation provided. Sometimes they don't. I know of one where they did not ask for alternatives. Often the municipalities are burdened with the outcomes of those court applications. I also think that much of the question now asked by the honourable member was dealt with earlier in the question around homeless people. And of course, homeless people, and I think that was the eviction that she was talking to in the city of Cape Town. And I think in that earlier question from the honourable class, I went into detail about the process being followed even prior to an eviction being sought. And that answer is definitely yes. Alternate safety net accommodation being put in place, making sure that there are homeless shelters. And of course, that's about dignity, that's about caring, and that is where a social development department will be involved. And that was, I think, quite a lot of detail in that earlier question. When it is other forms of eviction, we have to wait for the courts to make those kind of rulings. It's not that municipalities will then go and prepare a whole lot of homes before they would evict an illegal occupation. And I mean, we know that during the pandemic times with lockdowns, we had lots of areas that were illegally occupied, many of them illegally occupied, which already had services in place and were to be allocated to people who were on the waiting list. And so that also causes a real conundrum when someone, and I think that goes to the question that the Honourable Marais asked earlier, the difference between the two, a homeless person on the one hand versus perhaps someone who is living in an informal settlement or a backyarder, and how do they fit onto the list, and what kind of safety net is produced there? And that's the money that's spent through the Human Settlements Department, or will be spent soon to be through the Infrastructure Department. And they operate according to strict criteria with lists, etc. So, yeah, I think if the Honourable Member wants a bit more detail from me on the question in Drakenstein, I would be happy to get the detail for her, but she would have to put that question, I think, to me specifically, because I don't have those, and I try to prepare before I come, wondering what people are going to ask me, and I've got lots of notes here that I've prepared myself with, but I didn't have the detail on the Drakenstein eviction process. But I think the courts, we have separation of powers, and I mean the courts also play their role here. And we've got to obviously respect the outcome of those court processes, but it's also those court processes that are enabling our municipalities and our province to go through the processes of eviction.
Thank you, Premier. Honourable Barnes, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. I wanted actually with my initial question to check if the province has an alternative housing plan that is in place as a province ourselves. I didn't get that from the Premier. However, my follow-up is the Premier aware that there are 56 people evicted from Rooiland? I understand he said that he doesn't have the detail, including 30 children, consisting 16 school children and 14 toddlers that are currently housed in a shack belonging in a community leader, where the municipality only offers them peanut butter sandwich once a day with no water or proper ablution for facilities, and have to fend for themselves for other meals and services, and whether the government will ensure these families are provided for with adequate services and proper emergency housing. I just wanted to check that, Speaker. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Honourable Barnes. Honourable Premier, I don't know if you got all those follow-up questions. But
I think, first of all, the question around alternate, and I think that goes to the point about, it's not an alternate system. We have a policy, we have lists, we develop opportunities through a Human Settlements Department with those processes. The same happens at local government level. So that doesn't need an alternate. That is the policy, that is the plan. And of course, the other one, which I referred to earlier in my answer and earlier in the previous discussion in the interpellation around the question to do with homeless people. And so that, again, it has its own set of policies, its own approach as to how that is dealt with. I again say, and I mean, I hear the numbers quoted by the Honourable Member, but I need that detail. So again, I would say if she is looking for further answer, she has my mobile number, she has my email address, or can go through the parliamentary process and put a formal question.
Right, thank you very much, Honourable Premier. That concludes the first question to the Premier without notice. I now see Honourable Baartman.
I have one question, Speaker, left.
My apologies. There's one more opportunity. Sorry, my apology, Honourable Barnes.
Thank you, Speaker. I welcome the Premier when he says that I can give forward details to him. However, Speaker, I have received a letter from the affected families pleading for intervention. Amongst their cries, they demand an in-depth investigation into the hiring of the security company and why live ammunition was used against innocent people. Premier, yes, he said that he is willing to help, but I therefore want to ask whether the Premier will make inquiries personally into the recruitment of the security company by the Drakenstein municipality, the security company that shot and killed this innocent young man, even one man now living with a bullet in his body. But by when can I receive feedback of such inquiry, and whether your office will hold the mayor and his executive accountable for the inhumane conditions that our people live under in the municipality. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Barnes. Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much. Obviously, in the same vein, I'm not aware of the issues as raised, but again, I say, you know, if there's a question around a security company appointment and process, that can also be put into exactly the same question, and I will engage with the municipality to find out what those processes were. Obviously, the latter part of her question was, if it's true what she's just said now, then I mean, that is when people get shot at, I trust that there's been criminal charges laid with the police, because there's no ways that a security company or individual or anybody can start shooting at people. So I really trust that those charges have been laid. And please, you must give me that detail, and we will definitely follow up on that.
Thank you very much, Premier. Honourable Barnes, thank you for your indulgence. I'm now going to move on to Honourable Bartman.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, one of the vision priorities the Premier
members, there's a member virtually. The Premier must be able to listen to the question being posed to him. So can I please ask that you allow the member to pose it? Honourable Bartman.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, one of the vision priorities the Premier has previously indicated within his term relating to energy security has been for the Western Cape to become the first load-shedding free province in South Africa. And we are currently being held hostage as a people to load shedding, especially since Eskom is a national entity. And given the current national state of the disaster that was declared by the national president, could the Premier please indicate to this House what the Western Cape government is going to do to make the Western Cape the first load-shedding free province in South Africa? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Bartman. Honourable Premier. Order, members. Premier.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you very much to the Honourable Bartman. I think I got most of that question. I think, first of all, obviously declaring a state of disaster by a president in a country must be taken very seriously. And of course,
honourable members, you are drowning out the speaker. Members, can you please allow the Premier to answer the question? This has been going on the entire day already. I mean, this is a complete disrespect for somebody on the floor. Honourable Premier, over to you.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So obviously it is a really serious issue. And the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is correct. In actual fact, the Democratic Alliance asked for a specifically ring-fenced disaster declaration on energy. And, you know, it is a total disaster. You just have to go to any household in this country and you will know the devastation of the lack of management, the devastation on the lack of willingness from the ruling party in South Africa to fix this problem in the last 15 years. And it has exponentially just got worse year after year after year. We know that, and I don't have, I said I brought detail with me. I was wondering about this question, but I wish I'd brought the speech that I delivered in the National Assembly, because I'd got down to the days of how many days it had taken since the previous president in our country said that we will only have 2 years left of load shedding and it will be missing and gone forever. And then the current president in our country told us that load shedding would end. And then we wonder why we are battling to create jobs in our country, why our economy is tanking the way that it is. It's because of the effect on load shedding, on citizens, on businesses, on business confidence, on investment. It really is hectic. So as part of the question to me is our plan for making sure that this province becomes resilient and in actual fact produces sufficient energy so it would not have to rely on Eskom. And so you'll see our short-term plan. That is absolute immediate intervention. I've already started a Digicon process that we used to do during the COVID-19 process, during the 19 pandemic, where we would every week have an open, transparent, open to the media and the public through all social media platforms, and also ask questions. You know, tell the public what is happening right now, get questions back from the public, from the media, something that doesn't normally happen at a presidential level in our country, but here we do that. We allow people to ask those questions, and we try to give all of the feedback and be totally transparent on what we are busy with. And so, for example, immediately reduce our takeoff between 500 and 750 megawatts for this province. That's the short-term intervention. And today, if you were on the Digicon, you would have seen we had one municipality, the George municipality, showcasing exactly what they have done already and what their plan is in the short term. That is up to 7 megawatts in a municipality like George, which is one level of load shedding. The year after that, how they take it to the next level of load shedding. These are the kind of plans we want to see, and we are making them detailed and transparent because we must be held accountable to that. But at the moment, we do not have detailed and transparent data on how South Africa is going to deal just this year with the urgency and, of course, the implications of load shedding. And then we move on to the medium term, 1,800 megawatts to about 2027, and 5,700 megawatts by 2035. And the point that the honourable member asks is, so what is that plan about resilience? Now, we're probably using just over 4,000 megawatts at the moment at our peak. So 5,700 megawatts going into the future will definitely give us that opportunity. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Premier. Honourable Bartman.
Thank you, Speaker. Given the response, I wanted to find out how load shedding's impact has been on the safety in our province, because when the lights go off, our streets become unsafe. When it goes off, the mics in the court go off, and the judges have to postpone court rolls because legally they're not even allowed to hear certain applications when the mics are on. Hairdressers and butcheries are severely affected, and some of the police stations are even closing their doors and the officers are going home. So if you could please just give us some detail on the impact that has been currently on the safety in this province. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier.
Thank you very much. And exactly, I mean, you just have to visit citizens and see the implication of load shedding on safety. I think, and I'll use the words of the Gauteng Premier. He said the criminals have more tech and seem to be more armed than our police. And this is the problem that we have at the moment. And I think that you just have to be anywhere on the Cape Flats, and citizens will tell you as soon as the load shedding starts, the shooting starts as well. And it is criminals who are using that specific space to really put and exacerbate our crime situation that we find ourselves in. And of course, that for me is why, and I think I referred to an earlier question on having a look at the future budget. I was looking at how we're spending our money on neighbourhood watches and making sure that neighbourhood watches get the detail of when load shedding is to happen, how we continue to support them. The same thing about making sure we support community policing forums. Often in this House, we get accused of not funding community policing forums. You will see 310,000 Rand funding sitting so far in the 2022-23 budget. And then, of course, rural safety as well. We might have extra deployment in our hotspots right here in the city, but what about the rest of the province? And I see 2022-23, 21,298,000 Rand going into safety projects in rural areas, because it gets exacerbated. We already got a big crime problem and a failure of our policing system to make it safe. And so we've got to make sure that we are now trying to plug these gaps that load shedding is bringing to citizens, the fear that it brings when load shedding hits. It's a big, big problem.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Honourable Bartman, do you have another follow-up?
Yes, Speaker. I wanted to find out, other than safety, whether load shedding has had any impact on the infrastructure programs within the Western Cape, especially those such as delivery of homes, of schools, and other services that we are required to deliver. Thank you.
Premier, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, definitely. I mean, I think the load shedding impact just straight on our budgets in our health department. You can already see the hundreds or in the 100 million mark that we're already spending on diesel to mitigate this risk in our hospitals. Our schools, much more difficult. But that's also part of this plan, is how do we make sure we make our schools more resilient? What is the rollout plan to make sure that more and more schools get solar PV? I think we already said that policy going forward into building new schools. We'll look at building them with solar PV and battery technologies. How do we take the first 100 schools and really look at getting that risk mitigated? And across the board, it doesn't matter where it is in government spaces, it affects service delivery directly, and we've got to make sure that we mitigate that risk just as much as it's hitting citizens. And it really is. It is hitting citizens morning, noon, and night, and their ability to just lead normal lives, to look after their families. So that is why we've got to put so much focus in making sure we mitigate this risk of load shedding. Our country cannot afford another 15 years of promises and load shedding at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. Honourable members, there is 32 seconds left, so I'm not going to allow another question to be posed. We then come to the end of questions to the Premier without notice. I therefore move on to Rule 145, statements by members. I recognise the DA.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I want to once again bring to the attention of this House the persistent unlawful land invasions taking place across the Western Cape. Continued unlawful invasions, land invasions, are a massive risk, especially for local governments, as unlawful occupiers often demand services where no such infrastructure exists and place additional strain on municipal funds. It is not only local governments that feel the pinch, but also housing beneficiaries. In many cases, land invaders illegally occupy land earmarked for housing development or housing structures meant for allocation to those on the housing waiting list. They occupy the land that is earmarked for the infrastructure being for economic development. They occupy the land invasion or the land parcels identified for housing. As we speak now, we do have about over 500,000 backlog on the waiting list. And attempts by the provincial government to decrease this figure is interrupted by land invasions and now increasingly extortionist. Last year, Minister Simas revealed that in the past 3 years, more than 1,600 invasions of land earmarked for human settlements development were recorded. The provincial government has spent more than 100 million to prevent illegal occupations and secure land, but ultimately, housing beneficiaries continue to be the biggest casualties when it comes to land invasions. And as their right to access dignified housing is delayed and denied by illegal land occupiers, we find the honourable members, like the EFF, has been on the record over years in support
Honourable
of
Maseko, can you please conclude?
As members of this House, we have a responsibility to stand in favor of the rule of law and not to incite lawlessness like Member Lili and Member Kasim.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Maseko. Honourable, there's a point of order by Honourable Kama. Honorable Kama, I recognize you. Is that a point of order? No, Honorable Kama. Honorable Syed.
Thank you, Speaker. I think maybe the member should have ended where you were instructing that she must conclude, because now at the end she has now reflected on the integrity of the members by saying that they are.
What's your point of order, Honorable Kama?
She is saying member Lee and member Kasim.
Okay, I'm not gonna. What's your point of order, Honorable Kama?
The point of order is reflecting on the character of the members without making a substantive motion by saying that they are inside.
I didn't. Okay. Thank you, Honorable Kama. I get the context or the context of your point of order. I'm not going to make a ruling on that now. I'm going to revert to Hansard and come back to the House if there's any aspersion cast on any member of this House or the integrity and dignity of that particular member. Honorable Syed, is that a new point of order? Because I've ruled on that point of order.
No, Chair. They should be bringing forward, or the member must bring forward a substantive motion. Just some advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Syed. Thank you, Honorable Syed. I have ruled. That is not a point of order. I now see the ANC.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, this provincial government is spitting in the face and the graves of COVID-19 healthcare heroes and heroines. Despite the provincial government's commitment to build a memorial hall in honor of the departed healthcare workers, the Western Cape Government Health instead is terminating their contracts. In March 2022, the MEC confirmed that 592 contracts of staff employed in COVID-19 posts were terminated over the course of the pandemic. During the same period, 221 contracts for staff in vaccination posts were also terminated. Speaker, while we acknowledge that some of these were health workers were re-employed in non-COVID posts within the department, a significant number remain unemployed. On the 31st of March 2023, the last remaining COVID-19 healthcare heroes will lose their jobs as the Western Cape Government Health is terminating contracts of 214 Brackengate Hospital staff. 6 staff members are present in the gallery today. We acknowledge your presence. You are our heroes and heroines. Speaker, the ANC is opposed to the decision by the uncaring DA regime, and we are in full support of the demands by the workers to stop the continued jobs path in health. Speaker, there are staff shortages in almost all hospitals in the province, and therefore there is no justification for terminating these contracts. Part of the lesson learned from COVID-19 is the efficiency and effectiveness of step-down facilities, and hospitals such as Khayelitsha and Mitchells Plain District Hospital have requested such facilities to deal with overcrowding and service pressure. Why is the MEC not transferring these healthcare heroes to the KDH and Mitchells Plain where the service are needed? While workers are losing jobs and while others are protesting,
Honorable Windvogel, can you please conclude?
The DA and the MEC is nowhere to be found. We commend Minister Pata for cutting his parliamentary business short
Thank
to
you,
meet
Honorable
with the
Windvogel. Your time has expired.
sort the problems of our
Thank you,
healthcare
Honorable.
workers.
Thank you, Honorable Windvogel. Thank you, Honorable members. Order members. Thank you, honorable members. Order members. The next statement will be delivered by the EFF online. Honorable Windvogel. Honorable Windvogel and Honorable Bakubako Force. Members, there's a member waiting to do the statement online. Honorable Kasim, I see you.
Thank you, Speaker. For more than a decade, informal settlements and farming areas remain the most ignored and unserviced areas under this DA-led government, with its residents constantly having to fight for simple services like police, and health facilities which are often far from where they live. It is a disgrace that poor residents annually have to beg for critical services to protect themselves during times of need. Once again, in such areas, victims who are raped and abused cannot report their cases to the police as there is no place of safety to run to, and their cases are often among those not reported, untold and forgotten. The EFF therefore calls for the provincial and municipal government to prioritise the safety and rights of poor residents and to treat them with dignity in the times of need. Police and law enforcement wasted on land invasion missions should also be shifted to informal settlements to provide much needed services and to make accessing easier for even ambulance services who don't enter such areas due to it being marked off as red zones. I was also hoping that the minister would be present today to respond to my questions related to cannabis, specifically here in the Western Cape, as to how many cannabis projects has his department assisted, how many black people have received assistance from the cannabis farms, and more so, what is he doing to empower women and youth in the industry, as not much has been done here to educate them on opportunities in this industry. It is important that we destigmatize cannabis because the stigmatization is only to gatekeep African and colored people from participating in a very lucrative industry, knowing that cannabis has many applications related to medicine and even industrial applications. But just like the issue of informal settlement, I guess nothing will materialize under this DA-led government when it comes to the poor, and therefore even with cannabis, black people, women and youth participation in this industry will never be prioritized and will only happen under an EFF-led government where it will be a major economic driver. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Kasim. I see the DA.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, our country's economy is being battered under an ANC-led national government, and we see this in the 1.3% GDP contraction South Africa suffered in the last quarter. We see it in S&P Global downgrading South Africa's credit rating outlook, and in the Financial Action Task Force greylisting our country. But we, as the DA-led government, cannot stand by idly as our economy collapses. We must be proactive and solutions-focused on blocking challenges that inhibit the growth of our economy. One solution is to attract the people with critical skills and those who can work remotely to our shores with as little bureaucratic red tape as possible. This will bolster our economy and provide much-needed skilled labour and support our tourism and entertainment industries. This game-changing solution to drive economic growth is, unfortunately, being held back by the ANC-led national government because of issues which include backlogs in processing visas, ambiguity in interpreting existing legislation, poor service delivery by foreign missions, and issues with online visa applications. What is more concerning is that the DA has uncovered that only 1.5% of critical skills visas get adjudicated within 4 weeks, with an average turnaround time of 10 weeks. I have written to the Office of the Presidency to request an update on Operation Vulindlela and its implications and findings on implementing remote working visas. Unsurprisingly, I have received no response to these questions to date. National government is supposed to provide a regulatory environment that enables the economy to flourish, not stand in the way of companies getting the skills they need to expand and to grow. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I now see the ACDP.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the ACDP in the Western Cape is on the move. If you look at today's paper, the Daily Maverick, in an article, it reported on yesterday's by-election in Stellenbosch, Hall 21, and it reads as follows: the DA lost some ground in the by-election, but still recorded a big win. Most of its trouble came from the ACDP, which had a credible second-place finish, and that is in the article today. Speaker, the ACDP voter support grew from 3.4% to 16.3% from November 2021 to 8th of March 2023. We are extremely proud of our candidate, PR Councillor Otniel Jooste, for taking the ACDP in the Western Cape to higher heights. Speaker, the results is that the DA had 72%, the ACDP 16%, the Independent 5%, 5.9%, Good 4%, the ANC 0.68%, and the EFF 0.47%. The ANC and the EFF, the writing is on the wall. The people of the Western Cape has rejected them. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Christians. Order members, I see the ANC. Members, there's a member on the floor. Honourable Syed.
Honourable Speaker, the ANC welcomes our national government's reallocation of the education infrastructure grant to the Western Cape. The Western Cape Education Department has been reallocated 115.4 million rand of the 411 million rerouted from the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga. While it is sad to see that these two provinces forfeit the significant portion of the conditional grants, we must, however, commend our national government for bringing this money to the Western Cape, where there continues to be serious challenges of unplaced learners and overcrowded classrooms. Just yesterday, we saw firsthand that in Zimasa Primary School and Langa High Schools, up to 65 learners are crammed into a classroom. This reallocation is in addition to the 830 million increase in the WCED's infrastructure budget in the 2022-23 financial year. Lack of funding from national government has often been used as a smokescreen by the Democratic Alliance for this provincial government's failure to plan for learner growth and for not building new schools. It is concerning that additional funding from the national government tends to be spent on temporary solutions, such as shack schools being built by the WCED through its Rapid School Build program. Not all of them are that. We just wanted to clarify. The ANC will closely monitor the spending of this additional 115.4 million so as to ensure that it is used appropriately to improve access to quality education for all.
Thank you, Honourable Syed. I see the DA. Honourable Plato.
Honourable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. On Monday, I performed an unannounced visit to the offices of SASSA in Atlantis. I spoke to beneficiaries, many of them justifiably angry. They face long queues and standing in the queue since 5 o'clock in the morning, some even since 4 o'clock in the pouring rain. They face a massively inefficient system, although the staff trying is best under difficult circumstances, something they can't do much about. Many clients waiting for hours to perform simple tasks such as handing over of documentation. They could not even do that and go home. They had to stand in the queue for their turn, even if they stand in the queue for 4 or 5 hours, and that is completely unacceptable. These are problems we face at many of the SASSA offices across the province, and I suppose even across the country. It is a managerial problem. It is a leadership problem. There is no political will to address these matters. We need a clear plan from SASSA leadership of how best they're going to address these issues. It goes without saying that many of our most vulnerable, poverty-stricken citizens rely on SASSA grants for vital social assistance and other forms of assistance. SASSA Western Cape will be asked to come and explain to the Social Development Standing Committee how best they're going to address these issues. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Plato. I now see the Honourable Murray, Freedom Front Plus.
Speaker, verlede week het ek die minister van Landbou versoek om aandag te gee aan voedselsekerheid vir armes, veral stapelvoedsel soos brood. Die Vryheidsfront Plus loop dus kaselage en SA Hawes vir hulle inisiatief om goedkoop brood te maak by hul brouwerye met koring en gars. Dit is inderdaad prysenswaardig. We also call for the empowerment of coloured and Khoi emerging farmers. in this province, entrepreneurs and indigent households who are on housing waiting lists, as these minorities are neglected and receive very little benefits in terms of the labor equity laws and housing, having to compete against numerically superior African blacks whose influx to the Western Cape has changed the demographics of this province. Racial tensions are increasingly building up. We call on the Western Cape government to take remedial action to prevent racial tensions escalating and flaring up because of a fight for scarce resources by the influx.
Order.
And if anybody here calls me a racist,
Order,
the
members.
racists are the ANC
Order.
at national level.
Thank you, Honorable Murray. Order, members. Order. I see Al-Jamar.
Thank you very much,
Order, members.
Honorable Speaker. Bismillah.
Members.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Al-Jamar
members.
is concerned about the increasing incidence of criminal
Honorable
activity
members.
at public.
Honorable members. Honorable Laker. Honorable Laker. Honorable Laker. Members. I see the Chief Whip. Chief Whip. Order, members, there's a member on the floor. Honorable member, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable Murray, there's a member on the floor. There's a member on the floor. Members. Honorable Nkondlo. Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise.
Honorable members, there's a member on the floor. Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise at this moment feeling worn out and at pains with what is happening in the House, particularly when we're being called foreigners in our own country. I really do not take it kind in whatever the altercation was to refer to black people in particular as foreigners is an insult of the highest order. And I want you to rule on that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. I will come back to the House with the ruling because I couldn't, if I make a ruling now, I'm not going to be able to do so with all the facts in front of me. So I will come back to the House, and if there was any attack on any member of this House, I will rule so. I see, Honorable, there is a member on the online system. That's also, I think it's Honorable August. So I'm going to first see Honorable August.
Honorable Speaker, has my time lapsed or?
No.
Sorry.
No, we're not. We're still coming to you, Honorable Brinkes. Honorable August, I saw your hand. I did not allow you an opportunity for a member statement because I received an apology from you. So I don't know if that's an indication that you also want to deliver your member statement.
Honorable Speaker, yes, I also want to deliver my statement. Thank you.
I will allow you that opportunity after I've dealt with the points of orders in the House. Honorable Dagmo and then Honorable Nkondlo. And then Honorable Klaas.
Speaker, I'd like to just address you on your ruling. As the Chief Whip of the ANC indicated, the comment by Member Murray describing members on this side of the House and clearly referring to black African members as foreigners is deeply insulting and hurtful. We've noted that you have indicated that you want to consult Hansard. But I think, Speaker, I would like to address you and to say that there has been a clear insult to members who feel that right now. And I want to appeal to you to ask Member Murray to withdraw that now. and then come back to us later. But that statement, and I think that's part of the problem, that when the member says something like that, if he doesn't realize how hurtful and how racist a statement like that is, then I think there's a serious issue. That has not happened in this House before, that an insult like that has been leveled at members. It is clearly racist. He was pointing particularly to black African people, and I really want to appeal to you to be decisive on this, because we really don't have time for you to go back and consult. It's clearly offensive. Thank you.
All right, Honourable Nkondlo, then Honourable Klaas, and then Honourable Marais. Is this a point of order, Honourable Nkondlo?
Honourable Speaker, I would like you to rule on statements that gets to be made in this House that has got a duty to uphold democracy and Bill of Rights, where such statements have got racist or racial undertones. Thank you.
Honourable Klaas.
Speaker, I will want to raise a point of order from Honourable Marais. When he indulged, he raised the voice higher than it's supposed to be. So I would like you to rule upon saying that that was wrong when his voice is raised more than it's supposed to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Klaas. Honourable Marais.
I think that members must listen, because they speak too much, they don't listen. I was talking about coloured and Khoi people who, because of labour equity laws, and in terms of the equity laws, don't get jobs.
Honourable Marais, what is that a point of order? I don't want to
you're not
allow
going
you.
into the merits. Okay,
No,
fine.
I'm not going to get into the merits of it. I'm asking, do you have a point of order?
No, I don't have a point of order, but if they want me to apologize, I refuse. The Khoi was here first.
Okay, Honourable Marais, that's not a point of order. Honourable Chief Whip,
Thank you, Chair.
is that a new point of order?
It's a new point of order.
Okay, because you can't rise up on a point of order on a point of order.
It's a new point of order. There was a clear appeal that Honourable Marais must withdraw. Now, what he is doing is far from it. And if that is how he chooses to adhere to a request that was made, I'm afraid, me being black and an African woman, I'm not going to sit in the same house that I am insulted.
Thank you, honourable members. Honourable members, I appeal to you. Based on my initial ruling, I want to be able to come back to this House with a considered view on all the facts in front of me. And for that reason, I'm coming back to make a ruling on that House. And that is in line. And that is in line with the point of order raised by Honourable Nkondlo. So I want to rule in all of that together. I've made a ruling stating that I'm going to come back to the House. I will come back to the House. Honourable Syed.
Chair.
Honourable members.
Chairperson, can I appeal that given the sensitivity of the matter and the fact that racism is outlawed in this country and in humanity, that instead of going back to a Hansard, you adjourn the House for 5 minutes, you look at the Hansard and then you return, instead of waiting until the next sitting. It's a serious matter. So I want to propose that as a way forward and as a middle ground. Thank you.
Absolutely, I'm prepared to do that. Because I take that point of order very, very seriously. Let me put it on the record. And for that reason, I want to be allowed an opportunity to look at all the facts and all the comments made. That's why I made the ruling. So I'm happy to suspend for 5 minutes in order for me to do that, if everyone is in agreement. The House is suspended. I've suspended the House for a couple of minutes in order to apply my mind to a point of order that was raised earlier. I then suspended the House. I am not able to apply my mind accordingly. So I'm going to ask that the Deputy Speaker will take over the chair, and in order for the House to continue with the business of on the order paper, I will come back before adjournment of the House with a ruling. So I please ask that you allow me this opportunity to apply my mind based on that point of order, and I'll come back with a ruling before we adjourn for today. Thank you.
Afternoon, honourable members. We will proceed with Good, the honourable member, to actually continue with his statement.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The cabinet reshuffle of Monday past is not only a disappointment for South Africa and more specifically the people of the Western Cape, but more so a slap in the face of women, youth and persons with disabilities who are now represented by a 74-year-old in cabinet. The President had the opportunity to take the nation into its confidence and give non-performing, incompetent ministers the boot and replace them with solution-driven individuals who's able to champion the mandate of their various portfolios. What is evident is that the competence pool in the ANC is shrinking and South Africans are suffering daily because of this. The decisions taken for the reshuffle was short-sighted, ill-conceived, and the result of it shows a great lack of urgency needed to turn our ailing nation around. Speaker, the plight of the youth and the perceived urgency of our leaders to tackle the challenges of this demographic has become cheap political rhetoric that only enjoys airtime closer to the elections. A 74-year-old minister is now representing 35.7% of the population between the ages of 18 to 35. This should be considered a shame for our country posing as progressive. Deputy Speaker, now bringing it closer to home, what is this government realistically doing for young people? Youth cafes are situated too far from the youth to successfully use it there for too few to existence. The skills shortages amongst the youth should be urgently addressed by promoting vocational training and including society's most vulnerable amongst the workforce. Academies such as Chrysalis should be branched out to more communities. Our youth deserve a prosperous future with the ability and means to build a livelihood. Thank you.
Thank you, honourable member. I now recognise Al Jamal.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Al-Jama is very concerned about the increasing incidence of criminal activities at public healthcare facilities in the province. Our healthcare workers should feel safe and not be exposed to robbery and assaults inside and outside clinics and hospitals. The healthcare workers are not only exposed to robbery and assaults, but also verbal abuse, theft, and even having their vehicles stolen from parking areas at healthcare facilities. The current security personnel are ill-equipped and at a disadvantage to ward off criminal attacks. We call on the province to deploy efficient security personnel at healthcare facilities. We commend national government's free circumcision and viva to the ANC for that. Services available at most clinics throughout the country. Whilst these free circumcision services are available from the age of 15 years, many poor families within the Muslim community are deprived of having their male children circumcised at an earlier age. Private circumcision can cost up to 1,500 rand. Al-Jama calls on the province to take the lead in lowering the age restriction for free circumcision at clinics for those who cannot afford to have it done privately. This will not only benefit the Muslim community, but also communities of other faiths who would like to have their male children circumcised at an earlier age. Viva the ANC! Long live the ANC! The ANC will take the Western Cape.
Thank you to the honourable member from Al Jamar. Order, members. I was a little confused there. I was convinced I was speaking to Al Jamar. But we will now move over to the Democratic Alliance.
Deputy Speaker, today I want to put a renewed focus on the endless failure of the ANC national government to complete critical infrastructure projects. According to the Minister of Water Affairs' reply in 2009 in the National Assembly, construction on the old and unsafe Clanwilliam Dam wall was to start in the 2010-2011 financial year, with a completion date in the 2015-2016 financial year. The project cost was estimated by the Minister at 677 million rand. The increased wall height would have ensured greater water security and access to water for irrigation to particularly emerging farmers. In just 14 years, the projected cost has now increased sixfold. The cost to the agri-economy, the suffering due to job opportunities lost, the shattered dreams of emerging farmers that were promised access to water, and the plight of those looking for employment during the construction phase probably exceed the construction costs. As recently as September last year, Minister Mchunu promised that construction work would start in February this year. Well, February has come and gone, and the contracts for construction work have still not been finalized. The delays in increasing the dam wall height resulted in members of the Lower Olifants River Water Users Association accessing only 41% of the allocated water quotas during the summer. Yet, they are still required to pay as if they are receiving their full allocations. This is negatively affecting agriculture production as well as job creation. With load shedding already placing strain on farmers' ability to irrigate, the delays in the Clanwilliam Dam project are simply unacceptable. In closure, the ANC national government has for too long, through incompetence and entrenched corruption when it comes to the awarding of tenders, disregarded the people of this country. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. That brings us to the end of statements. In terms of Rule 145(6), I now allow one or more members of the Executive present to respond to members' statements for not more than 5 minutes collectively. I recognise the Premier.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So I'll try and use a little bit of that time. And I'm sorry that some of our nurses that were here have left. I wanted to use this opportunity to say to them, thank you very much for their commitment and for the role that they have played during this pandemic. We really do appreciate it, and I wanted to say to them, thank you. I also wanted to say to them and to members of this House that we all have contracts. Even those nurses signed a contract and they knew there was a start date and there was an end date. These members here have contracts. The voters decide at the end of their term whether they come back on their contracts. The nurses, we have engaged with them since October, and they know that there are vacancies for which they can apply, and I really hope that they do apply to get into a new contract. But I want to say to them, thank you for what they have done. Then I would like to just further say to the Honourable August that he asks, what is this government doing for the youth? I would refer him to the Blue Book, 25.7 billion or 25,700 million of our budget every year goes to youth programs. And then lastly, following on from the Honourable Murray, who spoke about jobs and the economy and the failure of national policies to deliver. It's interesting to see that in the quarter-on-quarter numbers that came out for jobs, where 169,000 new jobs in South Africa in total, 167,000 of those jobs are in the Western Cape, and 2,000 jobs to the positive in every other ANC province put together. 2,000 jobs in all of the rest of the country put together in the ANC provinces, 167,000 jobs in this province where DA policy is put in place. That is where ANC policy is put in place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Premier. I recognise Minister Mania.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Order, please, members. There's still 3 minutes available for the Minister to respond. Order. Over to you.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I think we all in this House know that budgets are tight. The education infrastructure grant has been declining in real terms for many years.
Order.
And that's why I'd like to associate myself with the honourable member's comments and welcome National Government's additional funding in the amount of 115 million, which we will use and allocate to our rapid school build program, where we aim to build beautiful new schools in poor communities in the Western Cape. And we certainly hope that in the future, National Government will consider allocating more money for this purpose and match the huge fiscal effort being put in to education by Provincial Treasury. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further responses from our executive members? No. I'm going to take that as a no. This is the end now of our member statements. We move over to notices of motion in terms of Rule 151. All notices of motion by members must be delivered to the Secretary for placing on the order paper. Accordingly, these motions have been duly submitted and published on the order paper below the line. In terms of Rule 150, we move to motions without notice. Members would please note that in terms of the new standing rule of 150 pertaining to motions without notice, condolence and congratulatory was submitted to the Programming Authority prior to this plenary on the 7th of March 2023. Members would further remember that motions without notice on the congratulatory and condolence matters will not be allowed in the sitting if the Programming Authority has not processed them. In this regard, the tabling staff informs me that the Programming Authority meeting of the 7th of March 2023, political parties submitted the names of honourable members in the desired order of speaking and indicated their respective members with a desire to move a motion without notice in this sitting of the House. I will therefore, just for noting and for the minutes, call out the honourable members whose names have accordingly been submitted and approved. The Programming Authority approved the following members' motions as follows. Honourable Syed, Honourable Kama, Honourable Kama, Honourable Dugmore, Honourable Bosman. I now put the motions duly submitted and approved by the Programming Authority to the House. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. The motions will appear in the minutes of the proceedings and on Hansard in each member's names as if that particular member had read them out aloud. I will now allow members to move motions without notice as per Standing Rule 152D. This could also include motions without notice that were not approved in the Programming Authority meeting. Members are reminded that the 3 minutes as per Standing Rule 152D will start now. According to my list, I now recognise the Honourable Chief Whip. My apologies, I did not see you
My
standing there.
apologies. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. May I ask that motions 12 and 14 in terms of Standing Rule 152A and 153A please be referred to the Programming Authority. Thank you, Deputy
12
Speaker.
and 14, if I'm correct? For
12
the record.
and 14.
12 and 14 for the record. Thank you very much, Honourable Chief Whip. I now move over to Honourable Class.
The House to note that 7 March 2023, staff members from Blockade Intermediate Care Facility, compromises of nurses, social workers, admin staff, cleaning staff, and doctors marched to this House against unfair treatment by the Western Cape Department of Health. This follows the move by the department to terminate contract of these workers as of end of March 2023 and replace them with the new employees from elsewhere. Further note that those workers joined the department at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, at the time when it was not fashionable to do so and risk their own lives in the process. EFF calls for the Western Cape Department of Health to insource these workers at the Blockade Care Facility or related facilities or alternatively place them in clinics or hospital. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? I see objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognize the Honourable Barnes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the ANC, I move without notice that the House notes with deep concern the rising level of extortion targeted at people who receive construction tenders in the Western Cape, with the latest incident being 3 contractors who were shot at the city's 500 million Delft Symphony Way housing project last month. Further notes and accepts that the DA in the province started and sustained the extortionist mafia in the province through awarding lucrative tenders to companies linked to the known gangsters, including the housing tender that was issued to a family member of a known gang high flyer, as well as the 3 WCED security contracts in Delft that are allegedly awarded to gangsters. Acknowledges that the DA is the founder of extortion record in the province. Like the apartheid regime, it funds gangsterism and civil unrest in the poor working class communities. Condemns the DA and calls for urgent intervention to bring an end to extortion in the province, as well as investigations into contracts the DA government has awarded to the gangsters in the province. I so move, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Barnes. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Barnes, before you go off, I recognise you again. Honourable Barnes. I'm going to move over to Honourable Moran, and then I'll come back to Honourable Barnes.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the African National Congress, a motion without notice that this House notes and lauds the national government for the successful completion of the Brandley Dam. Further notes that the dam came at a cost of 21 million rand. It will unlock 5,000 hectares of agricultural land. It will create between 5,000 and 10,000 new job opportunities, and it will benefit almost 70% black farmers and other black businesses. It further supports government efforts to improve food security in the province and country at large. Notes further with pride that while Minister Senzum Chunu officially opened the dam on the 10th of February 2023, the national government has also set in motion plans for the construction of the Clan William Dam and commends the national government for its successful efforts to make the Western Cape a better place. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion be moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to.
Objection.
Honourable Moran, are you? Honourable Barnes, are you there?
Yes, Deputy Speaker.
Okay, you may proceed with point your third.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I move without notice on behalf of the ANC that the House notes with concern the rise in stoning of SAPS vehicles in the parts of Cape Town, which CPF members claim as the new way in which gang members are recruiting youngsters. Further notes the cry from the community that these kids need to be in school and that as the result of many unplaced learners, they end up being recruited into gangs. Notes further that a constable who was responding to a murder scene in Menenberg was injured after his vehicle was stoned. Wishes him a speedy recovery and calls on SAPS, Western Cape Education Department and the communities to prevent the children from being recruited into gangs. I so move, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Barnes. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. Honourable Moran, over to you.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. Motion without notice. That this House note with sadness the housing crisis in this province, the issue that affects most black people. The provincial government does not care. Over 500,000 people are without houses in the Western Cape, yet they are registered at the Department of Housing database for housing opportunities. The number of people that have registered date back to 1997. As we speak, 200 occupants of the abandoned Helen Bowden nurses home located on the corner of Granger Bay Boulevard and Beach Road, Greenfontein are facing a possible eviction without a solution. When the occupation of the building started in March 2017, this provincial government switched off electricity, and people have been living in those conditions since. The Premier criticized the reclaimed city occupants during the State of the Province address last month. He said that the number of housing beneficiaries affected by extortion has risen dramatically in the past few months, from 18,000 to 21,000 residents. If anything, this shows that this government don't know how to deliver services. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice?
Objection.
There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognise Honourable Bakubakufos.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move motion without notice that the House note that the 8th of March is celebrated as the International Women's Day, a day that honors the women's rights struggle as well as a day to step up the fight until it's won for the social, economic, political, and cultural liberation of all women. Further notes that women in the Western Cape are still suffering from the yoke of triple oppression of unemployment, poverty, and inequality, while gender-based violence and femicide as well as sexual offences are at an extreme high. Remember, all the victims of GBV and femicide in the province and country at large, especially the victim of feral pain who remains at home while the perpetrator remains in his possession through the support of the Premier and his MECs. Call on all the members of the House to band together and reaffirm their commitment to ending the triple oppression of women, patriarchy in all of its expression, gender-based violence, and femicide in order to create society that is really inclusive, non-sexist, and democratic. Calls on the provincial government to prioritize this struggle by allocating more resources towards combating the scourge of GBV and femicide, and celebrates the honor all women out there. Malibongwe, Kamalama Koskazi, Malibongwe.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognise Honourable Sayed.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that during an oversight visit to Langa High and Zimasa Primary School in Kwalanga, there were serious challenges which were exposed as an impediment to the provision of quality education in the province. Calls on the Education MEC, David Maynier, to take note and urgently attend to these challenges, which include overcrowded classrooms, where there were 50 learners in one class at the primary school and 65 learners in a class at the high school. Further notes with deep shock and sadness the carelessness of the Western Cape Education Department's Safe Schools unit on matters of school safety at schools in poor and working class communities, as the visit highlighted the high occurrence of substance abuse, gang activity, and break-ins at these schools, which have gone unresolved for years. Notes further that following an engagement with the ANC, the South African Police Services, together with the local CPF and the safety volunteers in the area, have agreed to conduct regular patrols and search and seizure operations, and commends them for the swift response, and calls on the WCED to deploy social workers to each of these schools. I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice?
Objection.
There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognise Honourable Kama.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the People's Movement, the African National Congress, the government in waiting as affirmed by other political parties, I move a motion without notice that the House notes with deep concern and calls on the MEC Maynier to institute an urgent investigation into the reported incident at Esangweni Secondary School in Khayelitsha, where the principal is said to have chased away spiritually gifted learners at the school and further prohibited them from coming back to the school, including a grade 12 learner who is forced to stay at home because she is in the process of being a traditional healer. Further notes that the reported incident at the school adds to a long list of incidents in which learners have been discriminated against on the basis of their cultures and traditions. Calls on the Western Cape Education Department to run programs to sensitize educators to respect various cultures and traditions, condemns the principal of Esangweni Secondary and instructs him to allow the learners back to the school, and calls on the Western Cape Education Department to review all schools' codes of conduct and to work with the House of Traditional Leaders and other stakeholders to formulate uniform codes of conduct and a policy against discrimination of religious and spiritual beliefs. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice?
Objection.
I hear an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognise Honourable Nkondlo.
On behalf of the government, the African
Honourable Member, just take your seat for a moment. Minister,
Deputy Speaker, this relentless, blasphemous remarks from the ANC is quite disturbing, and I'd like you to ask the Honourable Lecker to please withdraw that comment. Your blasphemous comment, it is deeply offensive.
Honourable
As
Member,
a Christian, it is deeply offensive. No, your word.
Honourable members, can we not have a conversation?
Because it is used in a context that betrays the sanctimony of my God, and I would like that be please.
I understand.
Reviewed.
Honourable Kondlo, just take your seat for a moment. Honourable Kondlo, I have the Deputy Whip. 1 minute. Honourable Kondlo.
What is blasphemy?
Honourable Sayed. Honourable members, I can't hear. Honourable Kondlo, just take your seat.
Of course, religious sensitivity as well as race sensitivity always needs to be taken into account in the work we do. But I think it is also unfair for the Honourable Minister not to give context and substance to what the Honourable Chief Whip has raised. I picked up no offence, no blasphemous remarks in that regard, and I didn't even hear the Honourable MEC elaborating on what was wrong with what the Chief Whip had said. He just stood up and made a general statement.
Honourable Lecker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Perhaps the Minister or the MEC could have asked what I said. I will repeat, I said, does she know anything about traditional calling?
Okay.
Is there anything blasphemy about it or what? Perhaps MEC can clarify it better.
Thank you very much, Honourable Lecker. Honourable members, thank you very much. Can I just ask, I'm not quite sure if there's something in the air today, but all I'm asking is please for us to practice tolerance on all levels and high sensitivity. So I did not clearly hear what Honourable Lecker said. Honourable Lecker said she said that. I can check it on Hansard and always come back and make a ruling on that, Honourable Minister Wenger, because I'm not clear. But can I just ask, can we get through the motions? And please, honourable members, we have been in this house for some time, and honourable members, I'm still speaking. If I can just ask for your indulgence and your tolerance. Honourable Moran, Honourable Kama. Honourable Nkondlo, you may. Is there anybody who's got a point of order online? Because I'm hearing voices. No? Okay. Honourable Nkondlo, you may proceed.
I move that the House notes and welcomes a meeting held at the Rasdorf High School last week in Strand to look at issues of school safety at the school and others around the Helderberg region. Notes further and lauds the Lwandle SEPS police station for participating in the discussions and thereafter formulating a school safety plan, which includes, among others, establishing a school safety forum, ensure safety within the premises, maintaining police visibility inside and outside school premises, conducting random school searches at any given time, notes and supports the calls by local stakeholders for school resource officers to be deployed to all schools around the Helderberg region, as well as for the school safety plan to be implemented in all schools. Further commends all stakeholders that took part in that meeting, as well as encouraging all police stations in the province to also develop their own school safety plans. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Are there any objections to the motion be moved without notice? No objections? Agreed to. Honourable Van Voorgel.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move on behalf of the ANC without notice that the House note with deep concern the nationwide National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union protests which have resulted to disruptions to a number of hospitals in the province, particularly the KDH and the loss of 2 people and a little child. Notes further that while we acknowledge and support the workers' right to protest, we are, however, not in support of closing down of hospitals and intimidation of other workers who are not on strike. We call on the national government and alliance partners, especially now and COSATU, to go back to the negotiation table and speed up the process of negotiations so that our nurses could go back to work, and calls on the national government to recognize the important role the nurses play in the public healthcare system and give them the better wage they deserve. I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. Honourable Sayed.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes and condemns the unreasonable back-to-back scheduling of the budget deliberations in committees, which makes proper oversight difficult. The DA does this only as a tick box exercise. There is no real commitment to work, serve, and to ensure public participation. They are avoiding accountability and cover up for their provincial executive. This is not the first time the ANC raises this in this House. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Are there any objections to the motion be moved without notice? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognise Honourable Barnes. Are you there online? No,
Yes,
sorry. No. I did get that message. My apologies. I recognise point 13, Honourable Kaiser Philander.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes and object to the changes announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa to his cabinet on Monday evening, that this was in fact not a reshuffle, but rather a bloating of a cabinet already bursting at the seams with fat cats and cadres, that the unconscionable decision
Order, members,
to add 2 new ministries within the presidency will contribute an estimated 74 million rand to South Africa's public sector wage bill at a time of record unemployment and job losses, poor economic growth, and a rolling blackout crisis threatening food and job security. That the newly recycled cabinet is a slap in the face of the South African people, as there is clearly no accountability within the Ramaphosa administration for the bungling of the energy crisis, economic crisis, jobs crisis, crimes crisis, GBV crisis, basic and higher education crisis, infrastructure crisis, healthcare crisis, and service delivery crisis, among the many other crises our nation faces, that the House urges the national government to cut the fat and stop the abuse of taxpayers' money to bankroll the lifestyle of fat cat ANC cadres and follow the Western Cape example of a lean, efficient and caring government that puts the interests of residents first, not the interest of the politically connected elites. I so move, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. There are objections? So there are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognise the Honourable Pretorius. Order, members. Honourable Van Voorgel. Honourable Premier, I'd like to move over to Honourable Pretorius. Honourable Pretorius, are you online? Honourable Pretorius. I'm going to move over to Honourable Maseko. Maseko. All right, last call, Honourable Maseko or Honourable Pretorius? No. That brings us to the end of motions without notice. Honourable members, if you can just do my indulgence, I'm just going to hand over to the Speaker.
Members, thank you very much, firstly, for your indulgence, for allowing me an opportunity. I've now had an opportunity to listen to the audio recording of the debate, particularly the speech by the Honourable Marais, points of orders and interjections, and the transcription of the proceedings today are not yet available. Regrettably, some comments, especially interjections, are not clearly audible, and therefore a considered view is not possible until I've had the benefit of the transcribed recordings of today's sitting. Under the circumstances, and since this is a very serious matter, I will give a considered ruling on the allegations at the first opportunity next week Tuesday, as I'm not in a position to do so today. Honourable members, that is my ruling on this. I just want to check with the table staff that all business have been dealt with. Honourable members, that concludes the business for the day. The House is adjourned.
Chair.
The House is adjourned.
Chair, but
I indicate